I've been looking for this card for over 2 years, and in this video you will get to know why. So before I get into how I acquired that card, let me start with a little bit of an introduction as for why I have a collection like that. First, why do I have a species collection like that? And second, why Staraptor? Yes, we have Pokémon Center now in Germany. Still can't quite believe it, but yeah. So it all started basically in 2021 when I was more getting into the multilingual collecting of Pokémon. I was getting more active on Reddit, and one day I saw a post on Reddit by a certain guy named Quador, who was collecting Pikachu in all the different languages. And from that post, or I believe it was a comment on another post actually, I saw his E4 thread covering his Pikachu collection across all languages and basically also containing the history of Pokemon cards in basically all languages and in a very detailed form. So I read through that and was honestly amazed how much interesting stuff and details were included and how much knowledge Quador possessed of all the different languages. So that was the point where I really started to get interested, among other factors, in the different languages of Pokemon, which is also reflected in the openings I did from that point onwards. I regularly started opening languages I had not considered before. And well, yeah. That's how I got into multilingual collecting itself, but it still took me a few years until 2023, until I decided to start a species collection with Staraptor myself. Firstly, I started the species collection because apart from Quador, I also saw the species collections of other people on Reddit and on E4, like Citrina's Piplup collection for instance, and then I figured, okay, I might as well do that myself now. Because why not? I had opened a lot of stuff in different languages and was really interested in it by that time in early 2023. So I figured I might start my own species collection. And now, as regular viewers of my channel, which is probably no one watching this because they would all be German, but anyway, as regular viewers may know, my two favorite Pokemon are Staraptor and Rayquaza. And well, when I considered what to start my collection with, the thought was pretty simple that Rayquaza, of course, has a lot of expensive cards, mainly the gold stars. So I settled on collecting all Staraptor cards, which I think also turned out to be fewer cards. But that does not mean that it didn't come with any challenges or that it were few cards, because as you probably saw in the title or thumbnail, there are a grand total of 162 Staraptor cards, or cards with Staraptor on them, to be more precise. While there are only 12 mechanically different ones, there are of course different versions, mainly across the languages, and certain other differences, which I will now start to show off. I have all the cards in this binder, and we'll just go the card one by one, go over each card and cover the more interesting aspects or the more interesting backstories of cards in more detail. So the first card where Staraptor is present was already in the first Gen 4 set. Let me just quickly adjust the camera a bit, so that I maybe can show you a bit more of the binder page, hopefully. Yeah, I think that's better. It might be less focus, I think, but I think you still see the cards, right? Hopefully. Can I do it like that? Yeah, I think I can. So the first Staraptor card was released in the Japanese, how's it called? Space-Time Distortion set, right? That's how it's called. And as you can see, the Japanese has a first edition and an unlimited version. That is because Japanese only started to introduce the first edition distinction. You might know it from English, of course, from the Wizards of the Coast era. But Japanese only introduced it after English dropped it, basically in the e-reader era, so there was kind of a transition. And all sets until the late X and Y era, we'll get to that, as you saw in the intro, have a first edition and a limited version. So that's also true for Space-Time Distortion. So we have the first edition Japanese Staraptor from that set here, and the unlimited Japanese Staraptor. On the right over there you can see a Korean card, but that is not from Space-Time Distortion, as you can probably see by the different differing set symbol. And you can also see at the bottom that it has the copyright year of 2010, which means this card has a rather interesting backstory, or Korean cards from that era in general do. And that's because Korean, while getting base set from Wizards of the Coast and then randomly getting the ADV expansion pack, so basically the Japanese equivalent of Ruby and Sapphire, more EX Ruby and Sapphire, more or less, randomly getting that with Japanese backs, by the way. Korean stopped getting anything else in Gen 3, but then in Gen 4, Korean got completely exclusive, relatively small mash-up sets of different Diamond, Pearl and Platinum era cards. And this director is from the first of such sets, which is Start of an Adventure, released in 2010, hence the copyright year. And yeah, that's the story of this Korean card, which, while it was relatively easy for me to get, was close to being pretty hard, since Korean cards from that era aren't exactly easily found online. Like, if you search for this card in Korean, I think it's still the case, at least it was when I bought it, there's exactly one online shop in South Korea selling this card, and otherwise you don't even find pictures of the card, let alone listings for sale. So if the one online shop hadn't been there, I'm pretty certain, no, I would have the card, because I randomly later stumbled upon it on Macquarie, Japan, of all places. So I would have it also now, but it was a rather close call. But since the one online store exists, where one can find a Korean card from their completely unique era, where they got, I think I haven't mentioned it yet, 10 different catch-up sets or mash-up sets. Yeah, there's basically only one store selling them in Korea, and that wasn't too easy to find. Well, it was easy to find, but could have been hard to find if this store didn't exist, so that's what I wanted to say. Anyway, this director card was of course also adapted in the TPCI regions, so TPCI, for those of you who don't know, is the Pokémon Company International, and I will lose this differentiation, because if I say in non-Asian regions, that wouldn't be entirely correct, because Singapore and Malaysia get the English sets, so I just say TPCI regions. Yeah. Regarding the TCG, because I think regarding the anime, Singapore is actually in the TPC responsibility area of responsibility. Anyway, of course, this director artwork was also adapted into the first Gen 4 set for the TPCI or international languages, which of course was Diamond and Pearl. So you can see that I have the German holo here, as well as the reverse version, which also existed in German. The English holo version and the English reverse version. The same goes for French, where Staraptor has a different name, with it being the only European language altering the name. Normally German also alters names, but in the case of Staraptor, the German name is also just Staraptor, or rather Staraptor, but you know, get it, it's spelled the same, yeah, right? Then we have the Spanish, the Italian Staraptor, sorry. Was skipping that one accidentally, which also has a reverse version, and the Spanish Staraptor, which does not have a reverse version, because Spanish sets from that era did not contain reverses, and the same is also true for Portuguese, so that is also only available in one version. Which language this is, however, not true for is Polish. And some of you might now ask yourself, Polish? What the hell? There were Polish Pokemon cards, and I can't blame you, because Polish is usually the last language Pokemon collectors learn about, which was also true for me. But yes, there were Polish Pokemon cards, with only 2 sets being released, and both years after the other languages. As you can see, this Staraptor has copyright 2010, despite being from the Diamond and Pearl base set. So yeah, no idea how TM Toys, the Polish distributor, managed to convince the Pokemon Company to make Polish cards, but it happened. And as you can probably imagine, that wasn't easy to find either. Nowadays, at least this Staraptor, the regular version, could be found relatively easily on Card Market. There are some Polish sellers on Card Market offering cards from that era, but when I searched for that card in early 2023, there was nothing on Card Market. Like, you could maybe find the World Collection Pikachu in Polish on Card Market, but no other Polish cards whatsoever. So I had to search what the main second-hand online marketplaces in Poland were, which turned out to be Allegro. And then had to search on Allegro, where I found exactly one seller selling Polish Diamond and Pearl era cards, which I then messaged about this Staraptor, and luckily they agreed to send it to Germany. Despite, of course, the site itself not being engineered in that way, but they just raised the shipping costs, and so everything went smoothly. But yeah, that was the first time where I had to specifically reach out to a seller to acquire a card. What turned out to be even more difficult is of course the reverse version. As you can probably imagine, the reverses are usually a bit harder to find than the regular version, and to be honest, I haven't seen another Polish reverse Staraptor whatsoever. Not on any card market listings, not on Google picture images or whatever. So this is still the only one I have seen. For that I could not get to the same seller. I of course asked them if they happened to coincidentally also have the reverse version, but they did not. What I instead did was to contact the Polish YouTuber Hikomikos, who has a pretty extensive collection of Polish cards, and I already was in contact with him before while writing the German PokeWiki article on Pokemon in Poland. So I knew that he had a large collection of cards and knowledge. And I asked him if he had happened to have the Polish reverse, and luckily for me he did. I then agreed on the price with him, which turned out to be the highest price I had pay for any single card in this collection, shared with one other card, which I will get to at the very end, I believe. But yeah, pretty expensive for me, but also pretty lucky that I knew who I had to contact to find it, because this is probably also one of the hardest Staraptor cards to find if you're going for a multilingual collection. Moving on, we get to the next Staraptor card released, which was first in the Japanese Intense Fight in the Destroyed Sky set from 2008. As you can see, of course, also released in first edition version and unlimited version again. And then not in Korean. As you can imagine, not all cards made it into the rather small Korean catch-up sets, which often only had like 40 to 60 cards. So all other Staraptor cards from the Diamond and Pearl era actually did not have a Korean release, so we go straight to the TPCI languages, where we of course have German again, with the reverse holofoil also being available, as is the case for English, and of course French again, and Italian, and Spanish, where of course without the reverse holofoil. And when we already move on to the next artwork, which is the first card of Staraptor having some kind of gimmick with Staraptor FB, because the Beat of the Frontier set, as you can probably imagine by the Frontier part, covers the Battle Frontier form Pokémon Platinum and introduced Frontier Brain Pokémon, of which Staraptor is one of them. I have not remembered what the name of the Frontier Brain is, and didn't look it up in the meantime between recording the German version of this video either, but yeah, he used a Staraptor in the games, and thus we have the first kind of gimmicky Staraptor card, so to speak. Which of course has this Japanese first edition version, and as you had already guessed, the Japanese unlimited version as well. And as I mentioned, no Korean version, but of course we have the TPCI languages again, where this card was included in Platinum Supreme Victors. So we have the German regular version, the German reverse version, as well as the English counterparts for them, and of course the French counterparts, and no Italian and no Spanish, as you can see. This is actually the expansion released, or rather the Staraptor artwork released in the least languages, with only 4. Japanese, English, German, and French. So yeah, that's not a lot of languages, and the lowest point any Staraptor card will reach. In the same expansion, so also Beat of the Frontier or Platinum Supreme Victors, we also get actually the only special card Staraptor ever got. Not the only, well, basically also the only chase card. There is a little asterisk which I will cover later, but basically the only special card, at least, that Staraptor ever got, in the form of this level X. Yeah, I can't believe that it hasn't got an illustration rare or anything like that. But yeah, that's how it's been. So this level X truly is something special, even though I think it has one of the worst Staraptor, if not the worst Staraptor artworks. But anyway, yeah, of course it's also still a Frontier Brain Pokemon, so basically an evolution from this card, and exists in Japanese in first edition and unlimited, as you probably already figured, and in German, in English, and also in French. That moves us on to another interesting card, because this is the only Japanese exclusive Staraptor card. This is Staraptor M, released in the movie commemoration random pack, released alongside the 12th Pokemon movie, Arceus and the Jewel of Life. And as you can see, this is a anime style artwork, and this is actually, as you can also see with the SP Ash Staraptor, which I also always found pretty cool in the anime, so that's a nice card to have as well. And these packs released alongside the movie only come in unlimited versions, since it's not really a regular expansion. And there are of course also other cards in the set, also mostly with anime art style, showing Pokemon present in the movie, so yeah, that's pretty cool. Next up, we are already leaving Gen 4 and heading to the next region, it being Unova. And the first appearance of Staraptor was pretty late in the Black and White era, in Thunder Knuckle in Japanese, which released in Japanese in 2012. And also has a first edition and unlimited version. In the background you can see the capital of Unova, which is Stratos City in German, but I have no idea what the English name was again, but as you can see, it's frozen over. So these sets are showing the story of Pokemon Black 2 and White 2, where Team Plasma froze the city. And as you can see, by that time, Korean had done away with their exclusive sets and just joined the Japanese set structure. So the Thunder Knuckle set also released in Korean, albeit in 2013. A year later. And as you can also see, the Korean set has a slightly different logo, which I actually prefer, with this small white edge. I think that looks cooler than the Japanese set logo. No idea why they did that, but they did, and I appreciate it. And then of course this card was also adapted for the TPCI regions in Plasma Freeze. Here we have the German version and as you can imagine also the reverse version, followed quickly by the English version and its reverse, and as is tradition, the French version and its reverse, as well as Italian also with the reverse version, and Spanish. As you can see, by that time Spanish did add in reverse holos, so the Spanish cards from now on will also have reverse versions where applicable. And Portuguese, which still hadn't added reverse versions, so Portuguese only has one version. Now we move to cards that's rather interesting, because you already saw it in the very beginning of this video. Let me just start with the first edition version, which is kinda not too interesting. This card is released in XY8, Red Flash in Japanese, and that is one part of Breakthrough, which had this nice alternate dimension theming. In Japanese, Blue Shock and Red Flash had these artworks, in English where they were combined. But there's a counterpart to this Staraptor in the case of a Noctowl with like a middle age city, while Staraptor has the modern city, so that's pretty cool. Anyway, yeah. The Red Flash expansion, as you can see, did also come, like the others, in first edition and unlimited. However, in the others I just quickly mentioned that these versions exist. Red Flash, however, is a whole different story, because there the distinction is actually pretty relevant. I mean, not that it's irrelevant in the other expansions, but there the distinction becomes pretty interesting, since Red Flash, or late XY era sets in general, are among a group of sets where the unlimited version is much rarer than the first edition version in Japanese. And if you look at PSA pop reports, it's like 5% or something of the print run, roughly. But after years of searching, I feel like it's even less, but it's probably about 5%. I found plenty of other cards in Unlimited, but not this one. So yeah, as you can imagine, with such a small Unlimited print run, this card is rather hard to find. So I quickly realized that in the beginning, of course, I thought, okay, it's just another Unlimited variation. I didn't have any difficulties finding the other Unlimited versions on Card Market. The most I had to do was ask the seller for a picture to confirm that it's unlimited, but that wasn't an issue either. This, however, took me over 2.5 years in the end to find, and only when I just found this card, as you saw in the intro, was I able to make this video. So, how did this happen? First of all, once I realized that this card is gonna be difficult to find, I of course made a want to buy thread on the r/Pokémon TCG trade subreddit. At first I didn't mention any price, when I started to offer $20 for any condition and $50 for a card in good condition, or excellent by card market standards, so yeah. And then later increased the offer to $80, started to offer a finder's fee, but that didn't work out really. I also tried different things. I offered some at the same offer on the E4 forum, and also tried to bulk order from Japanese online stores, which said they were not differentiating between the unlimited and first edition copies of cards. So I have, I believe, about 35 first edition copies of this card now. Yeah, of course, they all turned out to be first edition, whatever. I went to physical card conventions, asked vendors with a large selection of Japanese cards from the era if they happened to have the card. They did not. They even looked through their bulk, but they didn't. I went to a newly opened store in my city to see if they had it in their bulk. I went through a few thousand bulk cards. I found the card in first edition, but also not in unlimited. I then hung up a little poster in that store for a time, offering 50 euros for the cards. Didn't work out either. I made a meme offering 50 euros for the card, attached it to my shirt, and went to a card convention with it. Didn't work out either. And then, as time passed and over around 2.5 years had passed, I got a bit desperate, so I searched, of course, regularly searched for XY8, so the just expansion code. Because most sellers on Mercari in Japan or Yahoo auctions in Japan just used that instead of writing the full name out. And stumbled, as I mentioned, upon several unlimited cards from Red Flash and also its kind of sister set Blue Shock, including the Mewtwo Secret Rare from Blue Shock, and later, by the way, also the one from Red Flash, but the relevant one is the from Blue Shock. I bought that card because it was at a relatively good, decent price. And you can see in my grading video, which is in German, but I link it here anyway, that I also graded that card later after nothing happened. Because what I did with this card was that I offered it for trade for a limited time for this Staraptor card. So I offered this Secret Rare in unlimited, like Blue Shock, of course, had the same rare unlimited print run as Red Flash, so also just 5% or something. And I offered the literal most rare chase card from the set in unlimited in exchange for just basically a random uncommon. I of course also got feedback that this was a pretty decent offer, but unfortunately nobody had Staraptor to offer as an exchange, so nobody could take that offer. I posted it to E4 and also in my Instagram story, so that even didn't work. So that didn't even work out. So I later graded the card and sold it for around 300 euros. So I was in a situation where it was that desperate to get the card that I was offering trade value of several hundred euros in exchange for basically just a random uncommon. But even that didn't help. What, however, did was something else: persistence. As I mentioned, I regularly searched for XY8, and it was actually not only regularly but daily. It was baked into my daily routine to do that every morning. All new listings under Mercari and Yahoo auctions. However, what I also did was to just search for the Japanese name of Staraptor about weekly, because not all listings specified the sets they are from, especially if they had multiple Staraptor cards in one listing. And one day, I think about 2 weeks ago, I was sitting in front of the lecture hall in university and had a little bit of time to kill. I was waiting if maybe another student I normally chat a bit with shows up. But she didn't, luckily for me, as it turned out, because I went for, yeah, whatever. It was the first day, so it's weekend soon. I might as well do my weekly search for Staraptor on Mercari now. I did that, I sorted by new listings, and I stumbled upon this. Now, at first glance, you might think, okay, that's a pretty decent price, but where's the card you were hunting? Well, as you can see, you have a first edition copy here below. And at the top you can see that the area of the first edition symbol has been covered up. I've had that a few times before. When I went to the additional pic on other listings, of course. When I then went to the additional pictures, it always turned out that the other copy was also first edition. However, in this case, as you can see here, it was unlimited. And then, of course, I was very happy to have found the card. Very quickly pulled the debit card out of my pocket and immediately did the purchase before the university lecture started, and then only had to wait around like 2 weeks, or yeah, a bit less than 2 weeks because I'm recording the video now, but only had to wait until the package safely arrived at my place, and now I can finally say that I possess all Staraptor cards. And yeah, this was the by far most difficult to find one and the last one missing from my collection, which I now finally managed to get. We continue with the other cards from the same set, which was also released in Korean, as you can see on the right. Then we of course have the TCG adaptation, which was, as I mentioned, in Breakthrough. So we have the German version here, of course, including the reverse, the English version, also including the reverse, and the French version with the reverse as well, as you can guess. Followed, as is tradition, by the Italian version. Would you mind focusing, camera? No? Not? Okay, let me try something. I think that's better, right? Yeah, definitely. Oh, I hope it wasn't out of focus for too long. But I think at least the artworks were still identifiable and the language somewhat, I hope. Anyway, we also have the Spanish version, which, as I mentioned, now also has a reverse. The Portuguese version, which does not have a reverse still. And another version where some of you might be confused. Yes, that is the Cyrillic alphabet. That is Russian. Russian Pokemon cards did exist. Usually the second to last language people learn about. But yeah, Russian cards existed exclusively during the XY era, and Breakthrough is actually the last regular expansion released in Russian, but Russian cards were a thing. And as you can imagine probably, especially in the last few years, have not particularly become easier to find. So yeah, in this case, I didn't struggle much to get them actually, because I was very lucky. Look, I started my species collection journey with Staraptor in January 2023. On, I think, January 27th to be precise. I made an Instagram post that day, so I know. And I kid you not, one day later, an account I was following on Twitter tweeted about opening a Russian Breakthrough booster box. And I thought, okay, that's an opportunity I can't let slide. Like, usually I was, of course, still working on the Diamond and Pearl Staraptor at that time and not really thinking about Breakthrough otherwise. But I knew that the Russian one was gonna be difficult. So I sent her a DM. And after a bit of waiting, I got a reply. And in the end it worked out. And I received a letter from Russia, luckily containing both the regular and reverse foil in Russian, because she had duplicates of both, which was very, very lucky, because the reverse version is of course more difficult to find than the regular version even. So yeah, that would have been a major headache if I hadn't known about the account, known about Akiverse or Annette, didn't follow her and didn't see the tweet or whatever. That would have been majorly difficult, and maybe this would now be the last card I'm missing. But yeah, in that case I got pretty damn lucky to be at the right place at the right time, basically. So the last XY card wasn't actually in the end that difficult to find for me, but of course Russian cards are generally pretty difficult to find. Albeit that Breakthrough is one of the two more common Russian sets. I think Ancient Origins and Breakthrough, it's relatively clear to say that they are the most two commonly found Russian sets, but still, it's a Russian reverse. It's not easy to find overall. Anyway, we are now entering the Sun and Moon era with this card, which is from the Japanese Awakened Hero set released in 2017. And yeah, that set of course also released in Korean. You probably are already used to that by now, but the Sun and Moon era also saw the introduction of 3 entirely new languages, all from Asia. As you can see, from left to right, we have Thai, Indonesian, and traditional Chinese here. Or, well, okay, not entirely new languages. For traditional Chinese, I have to correct myself. They did get a base set and randomly EX Legend Maker and some decks before, but the Sun and Moon era is where traditional Chinese started to get continuous releases. And with the 5th anniversary collection, for instance, they also only counted that. So even from an official perspective, they don't really acknowledge the prior cards that much. So anyway, yeah, these languages were basically new additions, and since they were new additions and only added to the TCG in 2019 when the Sun and Moon era was almost over, they received unique catch-up sets consisting of multiple cards or cards from multiple different Sun and Moon sets. And yeah, this catch-up set for Thai and Indonesian is the first Impact set. Of course, that's just the English translation, but yeah, released in 2019 and is actually the very first of these catch-up sets for Thai and Indonesian. As you can see, the set code is AS1B, and traditional Chinese received different first set, which was the All-Stars collection, also released in 2019. Also, as I mentioned, the first set, which has the set code AC1B, and yeah, this Staraptor artwork was included in all of them, as you can see. Then for the TPCI regions, this artwork was in Crimson Invasion, which you can see here in German as the regular version, the reverse version, and we have a third version, which is actually the only kind of supplementary release like that in a deck or something, which actually differs from the set card for Staraptor. As you can see, there's a little 22 stamp here. That is because this card was included in the Sun and Moon Alolan Sandslash and Alolan Ninetales, I believe it was, trader kit, which was, as you can see, also released in German and of course in English. So we also have the regular, the reverse version and the trainer kit version in English here. Moving on, we also got the same picture. Actually, it's really cool that it's three variations, because that makes for a nice looking binder page with everything orderly displayed. Anyway, we also have the same in French, and the same is also true for Italian, as well as Spanish. Now I could go over it, but, which many of you might not expect, this card actually turned out to be the second hardest to find after the Japanese Unlimited for me. Yeah, not the Russian one, because I just had to write one message and I was done. This actually turned out to be the second hardest. Now one might think, okay, the other trainer kits weren't hard. Can't you just also buy that on Card Market? And yes, I could. And yes, I did. But what happened? The seller sent me the wrong card. I, of course, contacted the seller afterwards, and he was like, yeah, okay, I'm gonna refund you and send you the right card after I return from holidays. I didn't care much about the refund bit, but guess what didn't happen after the seller returned from holidays? Yeah. So I was kinda stuck without that card. So I had to resort to kinda unusual measures. I, of course, googled the card. There weren't any listings for sale, which is not too unusual for trainer kit cards in not so much printed languages like Spanish. I searched for the trainer kit itself. I had a bit of more hope there, but no. I found plenty of listings, but they were all sold out because after all the kit released, I believe, 5 years before I searched for it, so not too much of a surprise either. So what I then did was to search for the Spanish name of the trainer kit on YouTube to see if I was able to find any openings. And as it turns out, I did find an opening by this guy here, Tony Stark Unboxing, and wrote a comment asking him if he would be willing to sell the card. Luckily for me, he was, and I had to create a Facebook account because I didn't have one, and then wrote it with them on Facebook Messenger a bit. Communication took a while, but in the end, I got a letter from Mexico, so yes, this card had to unexpectedly cross the Atlantic. I assumed I would just get it from a Spanish seller on Card Market, but since that one didn't send the card after all, in the end I got it from Latin America, which is pretty cool, pretty interesting. But yeah, in the end I managed to get it, and that's the story with the Spanish card. There's also something interesting if you compare to previous cards with the Portuguese version, because as you can see, by that time even Portuguese had finally added reverse holos, thus completing all TPCI languages, which now all have reverse holos nowadays, and from that point onwards. Now we move to the Sword and Shield era, where Staraptor actually did receive 2 cards. I'm gonna take that away beforehand, which is kinda unusual, because in all other eras, or all other generations rather, since Gen 5, because in Gen 4 Staraptor of course got multiple cards because that was the generation where Staraptor was introduced, but in all other generations Staraptor got only 1 card, but during the Sword and Shield era it got 2. The first of these was in the Infinity Zone set in Japanese, released in 2020, which of course also had a Korean print. And this artwork was also used for the Thai and Indonesian Shiny VMAX collection, which actually was the last of the Thai and Indonesian catch-up sets. You can see it has the set code SC3B. And yeah, so it's pretty cool to have Staraptor in both the first Thai and Indonesian catch-up set and the last one. Nice little fun fact there. And the same is actually also true for traditional Chinese. As you can see, this has the set code SC2B, so it has a different catch-up set. That one is known, or at least the English translation is Infinite Power, and released a year earlier in 2020 already, and was also the last traditional Chinese catch-up set. So that kind of link with Staraptor from the first to the last set also exists in that language, which is also pretty cool. And as you can see, that's not the only Chinese version, because we have the most recent edition of Staraptor languages, not languages overall, that would be Latin American Spanish, but there hasn't been a Latin American Spanish Staraptor yet, so the most recent Staraptor language would be Simplified Chinese, which overall got introduced in 2022 and has also received unique catch-up sets, albeit that they are still in the catch-up era, so they have catch-up sets to this day. This here is the Vivid Portraits catch-up set, released in 2023, and as you can see, which is pretty cool as well, Simplified Chinese has the unique perk among Asian languages to also do reverse foils, and this is a reverse pattern not available in any other language too, as far as I know. So yeah, that's pretty cool as well. These two Simplified Chinese versions also exist. Following that, we of course have my phone stopping the recording, which was not how I intended to end this sentence, but anyway. What I wanted to say is that we of course also have the TPCI languages, where this artwork was included in Darkness Ablaze. So that of course was released in German with a reverse foil, and as usual also in English. And camera focus, please, please, pretty please. Yeah, thank you. French, Italian, and Spanish, and now of course also Portuguese as well with a reverse foil. And then we have, as I mentioned, the second Sword and Shield era artwork. That is because Brilliant Stars included a lot of Sinnoh Pokemon, I think to already celebrate Legends Arceus a bit. So yeah, that's pretty cool. This of course is not Brilliant Stars though, because it's the Japanese and Korean version, which is from the Starbirth set, released in 2022. And by that point, as I mentioned, the last catch-up set had Staraptor in the other languages. So the Starbirth set also released in Thai, Indonesian and traditional Chinese, as those languages just joined the Japanese set structure. Thai and Indonesian in the meantime have started to do their own thing again, but this hasn't applied to Staraptor yet, so the remaining Staraptor cards are all in the equivalent sets. And as you can see, we have a simplified print as simplified Chinese print as well, which is from the Gallant Galaxy set, I believe. Yeah. And fear not, there is of course also the reverse version. It's just on the next page. And we have the TPCI adaptation, as I mentioned, in Brilliant Stars with German, English, French, of course including reverse foils, Italian, Spanish and Portuguese as usual. And when we already arrive at the last card of Staraptor itself, not the last card with Staraptor on it, but the last proper Staraptor card, which has a pretty nice artwork. I think this one and the first one from Diamond and Pearl are my two favorite artworks of Staraptor. Yeah, good work by Furusawa. Yeah, anyway, which is first released in the Japanese Scarlet EX set, released in 2023, which of course also has a Korean version, as you can see here, and a Thai version, as well as an Indonesian version, and a traditional Chinese version. And as you can imagine, this also was adapted into a simplified Chinese catch-up set. However, there's something special here. When I said earlier that there was a little asterisk of Staraptor not getting another chase card, this is the one I meant. As you can see, this card, or this set rather, has both Pokeball and Master Ball reverse holo foils, with the Master Ball foils of course not being guaranteed in every pack. So you can kinda call it the chase cards, but as far as I know, the simplified Chinese Master Ball reverse holos are easier to pull than Master Ball reverse holos in, say, Japanese high class sets. But it's still like somewhat of a chase card. It's at least something, with Staraptor only getting random uncommon cards in recent years. I'm glad that this exists, even though that's not the kind of chase card I would be hoping for, but yeah, it exists. And this is, by the way, I haven't mentioned the set name yet, the Miracle Journey set in Simplified Chinese, which released earlier this year in 2025. And this card as well is of course no exception in getting an international adaptation as well, in the Scarlet and Violet base set, here seen in German and English, as well as French, Italian, Spanish, and of course Portuguese. And then we have the one cameo card Staraptor has. I also collect those, even though, yeah, it's not much yet. It's only this very card. But yeah, I've ordered everything by release date, and I will probably keep it that way, but since the cameo card is also the most recent one, I could have ordered by cameos and non-cameos as well, and it would be the same result. But anyway, as you can see, this is the Tyranitar artware from Clayburst in Japanese, which has several Staraptors in the background, with the one on the top right, of course, being the most visible. And the Clayburst set also released in Korean and Thai, as well as Indonesian and traditional Chinese. And this card also was adapted into simplified Chinese, however not into a catch-up set, but rather, as you can see, it has a promo card number 27SVP, into a mystery product, into a blind box, where you could get a random deck box and the fitting promo card. And one of these promo illustration rare promo cards was this Despotar. Is it a Tyranitar? Despotar is the German name. This Tyranitar illustration rare, yeah. So kind of a different release, also pretty cool, and basically the last fun fact I can tell about any card, because the other releases are just the usual international ones, so German, English, from Paldea Evolved, by the way, released in 2023, French, Italian, Spanish, and Portuguese, and yes, that makes a perfect 18 binder pages. Pretty cool that the cards number turned out to be so even, and that concludes my collection. I think it's pretty cool to have achieved that goal after a little over 2.5 years, and I'm of course also looking forward to any future Staraptor releases and see what the TCG has to offer. I'm of course still hoping for a Staraptor illustration rare or something like that. I mean, we got it in the TCG pocket, but a physical card would be very nice. And now at the end, of course, I want to thank a lot of people, since without them, or the businesses, not only people, also businesses, which often only have a rather small number of people behind it anyway, but I wouldn't have achieved anything of that alone, especially with many of the cards not normally shipping to Germany, or Europe for that matter, or outside of their country usually for that matter. So I of course want to thank, before I thank the people helping me with that, I want to thank Quador for getting me into species collecting at all, because without his post, I'm not sure whether I would have started to show interest in that direction. And other species collectors, of course, as well, which also pushed me further towards starting this own collection. Like, for instance, Citrina with her Piplup collection. And, of course, people who mentally helped me, who congratulated me on purchases, and collectibles who kept an eye out for the Unlimited Staraptor, even though I did end up finding it myself. And now, as I mentioned, everyone who made it possible to get cards to me which normally wouldn't ship to me. So Zen Market for getting the Unlimited Staraptor reliably to me from Japan. Harumio for doing the same with the vintage Korean cards. Although I have to make a little asterisk here that I have heard that service quality has declined since I used them in 2023, so maybe keep that in mind. Then Celestial Delinquent Shopping Service for getting me all the traditional Chinese cards from Taiwan, although her Taiwan service has been discontinued in the meantime. A very big thank you to Imagine Yauf Collectibles for getting me all the simplified, or basically almost all the simplified Chinese cards. The Tyranitar, I think it was, I bought myself, but the others I got from IYC, often thrown in for free with other orders, so a big thank you for that. Then Taifi for making it possible for me to buy all the Thai cards on Shopee Thailand and various, or almost all the Thai cards on Shopee Thailand and various other sites. Versand aus Indonesian for doing the same for Indonesia, even though their web design could have an update. Then Tony Stark Unboxing, as I mentioned, for selling me his Spanish trainer kit Staraptor. A big thank you also to Rayquaza Brazil for helping me, for not only having a very cool profile picture and name, like, of course, a fellow Rayquaza fan, but also for helping me with getting all the modern Portuguese cards, because for those of you who don't know, modern Portuguese cards are basically only available in Brazil, so he helped me to get all of them from Liga Pokémon, which was very nice. Then to Kuba Panica, the Polish seller I mentioned, every time the only one selling Polish cards basically. who agreed to ship to Germany. In the meantime, he is also on Card Market and not anymore on Allegro, I think. And there are, of course, as I mentioned, other sellers. But yeah, at the time, that was very crucial. Then, of course, a big thank you also again to Hikomikos. Without him, I'm pretty certain I wouldn't have found the Polish reverse to this day. The same is, of course, true for Enet or Akiverse on Twitter, with the Russian reverse, and of course also the Russian regular version, even though I ended up pulling that from a pack later. For those of you who want to watch German opening of Russian packs, I'll link it here. And yeah, as I mentioned, big thank you of course to other species collectors. And Citrina again for having the tutorial for the spreadsheet, which I made for my collection, which you'll also find in the video description. So if you want to track my future collection progress, you can use that spreadsheet to have a nice overview, or just go to the E4 topic, which I will of course also link in the description, and track my purchases and everything there. And yeah, of course also an obligatory thank you to everyone whom I might have forgotten and didn't write down here. And yeah, I hope you enjoyed this video, one of my few English ones and the only one where I'm actually speaking English instead of like only using English music. And yeah, since I make German content, I won't advertise my other videos here. So just thank you for sticking around, and to other species collectors, believe in yourself. Any card can be found if you're confident and patient enough. And all of you have a great day.